How to Win Friends and Influence People, the Muslim edition. This is not going to be a review of the famous book by Dale Carnegie. This is just going to be 5 things that I did over the years to be able to master this skill that I believe is my core competency that Allah Azza wa Jal blessed me with. And at the end, I'm going to share with you the most important of these 5 skills that help me really get what I want from people with the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. And then after I mention that, I'm actually going to mention with you one thing that I realized is actually a gap in my armor with regards to my skill in terms of how to win friends and influence people. And I'm working on that today. And hopefully you guys can take that lesson from me and also begin going through that, inshallah ta'ala. I just want to mention, this is not like a detailed research video. This is just me sharing some of my ramblings, some of my thoughts with regards to why and how I was able to develop this skill. This is a fundamental skill. I must stress that you really take out the time to learn this, inshallah ta'ala. In case you're wondering who I am, my name is Imran bin Mansur. I'm a student of Islamic knowledge and I'm a 7-figure entrepreneur, and I'm not the most knowledgeable person ever inside any room, but I had some of the most effective du'ats in the West that used to work with me in the da'wah projects that I had set up, and nor am I the most masterful business practitioner, but I do have some of the most elite business practitioners in the world that work alongside me. And if you want to know how I managed to get them all to work with me and to be a part of my team, then watch this video, inshallah ta'ala. Let's go. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, I'm not good at a lot of things. There are many things that I'm absolutely appalling at. But with that said, Allah Azza wa Jal has shown me a degree of success in da'wah, in seeking knowledge, in running my business, and so on and so forth. What is the one fundamental skill that I can put this down to after Allah Azza wa Jal's help and aid? It would be the ability to win friends and influence people. This is such an ignored and neglected skill. But when I look at the people that are the most effective in the world, they are people that know how to win friends and influence people. Think about it, right? You as one person cannot do everything that you need to do in order for you to achieve the goals that you need to achieve. You need people to work with you, alongside with you, and do things with you or to do things for you. Now, if you can't win them and influence them, how are you ever gonna get that massive amount of work to be done? For all intents and purposes, da'wah is knowing how to win hearts and minds and then to influence them towards the right path. Of course, there's a fundamental ingredient which we cannot miss out, which is the help and the guidance that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in terms of taking the means, this one skill, it compensated for so many deficiencies. My ADHD and the dyslexia that I have, and so many other issues. So many areas where I lack knowledge, so many areas where I lack skill. I was able to make up for it by just knowing how to talk to people. Now, I didn't go through an official psychology course or a training where I studied human behavior. My fundamental method here, there's a few different things that I did, but my fundamental thing was, I just looked at effective communicators and I literally replicated what they did. So I remember when I got into public speaking over a decade ago, I would just look at public speakers that I thought that were really amazing. And then I would emulate what they did. I would emulate them to the point of the fluctuations of their tone, to the point where I would emulate the language that they used, my hand movements and my hand gestures, the pacing at which I spoke, my body language, the way that I stood, the way that I leaned, the jokes that I made. At the beginning, I literally just copy and pasted. People would actually say to me, oh, you're just a so-and-so. But many years later, I came across this book called Steal Like an Artist, which actually affirmed what I was doing to be something which is best practice. And that is that there's no such thing as originality. No one is doing anything original. Rather, what we do is we look at what people have done before us, and then we draw from what they've done, and then we add our own flavor to it. Our flavor is what ultimately results in what people call something creative and original. It's my twist, it's my add-on. Now, what I've been doing over the last decade is just looking at the most articulate, the most infectious personalities who, when they speak, people listen. And then I've just been taking things from there and taking something from him, and then through my own practice, as a practitioner of this craft, I begin to discover, oh, well, that works for me. That doesn't work for me. Oh, that actually seemed to be more effective than what I learned from this person here. And then that becomes ultimately an art. Does that make sense? That I have kind of, you know, just internally just been able to kind of get a grip on. And this is something that I would advise a lot of people to do, is just observe articulate speakers. Observe people that are passionate. Now, here's the thing. You want to observe people that are in your particular industry. You want to observe people that are in, for example, that you can relate to. I'm a very passionate person. I speak with a lot of passion. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. So I would look at those type of speakers, ones that would rile me up, ones that would get to me. Remember, I can't reach out to every single person. So this right here would help me, right? Because otherwise there's hundreds of people that I could be listening to. So that's the first tip. Let's just observe great speakers. The second thing is I observe my interactions with people. So one is me observing the speaker and trying to emulate what he's doing. But number two is, okay, cool. And by the way, I'm not just talking about public speaking. I'm talking about like one-on-one conversations, negotiation, all that, right? The second thing is I would observe how what I have said has actually, like how it has impacted the person. When I'm like, oh, I put the person to sleep. When I'm like, oh, I got that person to be excited and they were on the same idea, they were on the same wavelength. I'm like, okay, that worked. And I would be attentive to certain gestures, words that I use, tones of voice, examples that I brought up. I would be attentive to those things. And I'm like, okay, cool. How is that being received? Because one thing is me looking at what someone tells me works in theory, or me looking at what I'm thinking is going to work in theory. But number two is in practice. And by the way, not all five things are the same. So something that might work for a particular crowd might not work for another crowd. I'll give you an example. When I used to give lectures in the masjid, I was always tougher with the guys than I was with the girls. And the videos that would always be uploaded with the ones of me talking to the guys in the masjid, I never, ever, ever raised my voice at the sisters. Now, if I treat them exactly the same, they'll be put off. With the sisters, it was a lot more of a compassionate approach, and the way that one would expect one to talk to a woman. So that's, for example, being conscious of genders, being conscious of ethnicities, being conscious of, different things. So point being is that look at how what you're saying is being received and then make adjustments and tweaks accordingly. The third thing I would say is give people importance when you speak with them. Right? This is one of the fundamental ways that you can win people over and influence them, is give them importance, make them feel important. The Prophet ﷺ would always make his Sahaba feel important, right? And to the point where he would give them these titles. Abu Bakr, you're the Siddiq, the truthful one. Umar, you're the Faruq, the one who can distinguish between, good and bad, right? The truth and the falsehood. Zubair, you're my Hawari, you're my disciple, right? Was it Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah, you're the Ameen of the Ummah, you're the trustworthy one of the Ummah, right? The Prophet ﷺ would give his companions these titles, make them feel important. So much so that when he would speak with people, they would think that he loves him more than anyone else. They would think he loves him more than he loves his own wife, right? As the hadith of Amr ibn As goes. So point being here is that give people importance. When you sit with someone, like, make them feel like the center of the attention. Make them feel understood. Make them feel like you care. Make them feel like you're interested in them, right? And appreciate them. And notice them and notice the good things that they do, right? And be in awe of people. And I do this naturally, right? I do this naturally. And it may not have, and look, in all truth, it didn't come naturally to me, because I'm an extrovert who maybe has a bit of a self-centered nature to himself, who, I'm just being honest here, right? That's a deficiency in me that I observed years ago. So it's like, okay, cool. Like you don't have to be the guy that is the center of the room. You don't have to be the guy that everyone, is constantly hearing his voice. And people don't like that, because the best conversations are usually the ones where people speak the most, right? Like when I sit with people, like the ones where I listen to them the most, where they speak the most and I just listen and understand and engage, they are the ones that they feel are the best conversations for them, right? It's crazy. Like, I haven't spoken. That guy walked away feeling that was the best conversation of his life. because people like to talk. So I'll let him, I will now just listen to people, and I'll appreciate people, and there's a beauty in that because you learn so much. You learn so much because when you actually just give people a chance to have their moment on stage, to just have their to to not steal their thunder, you learn from them. But there's something else that you learn. You learn more about them. You learn things that motivate them. You learn things that frustrate them. You learn things that they want. You learn things that cause them pain. You learn so much that then you can use in your negotiation and your discussions, not in a way that's manipulative, but in a way that's persuasive. And the reason why I said not manipulative, because for me, the fundamental thing that manipulation has is that it's something that can be used at someone's detriment. Whenever I negotiate with someone, try to convince them to do something, it will always be with their best interest in mind. To the point where if I know that I can get this guy to do something for me, but I know that he is not going to benefit, and this is actually going to he's going to get the better, the worst end of the deal, I will not go through that negotiation with him. We have this fundamental principle in our sales team. If someone's looking to pay and we know that they will not benefit from our product or service, we will not take their money. The last time I checked, a few months ago, we had said no to over $100,000 cash collected, right? Because people wanted to pay us and we're like, no, you won't benefit from this, right? We know you won't benefit from this. And since then, I think that number might have doubled even more, right? So the point here is that listen to people, make them feel important because they will appreciate that. You will get to learn from them. And guess what? You will get to learn more about them. The other thing here is I try to read a lot. I try to read a lot to understand the human condition. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not really into psychology, but I do love to understand human behavior, right? Because relationships are such a fundamental part of our life. It's shocking that we go through school learning Pythagoras theorem and quadratic equations, but no one ever told us how to speak to our wives. No one ever told us how to raise our children. No one ever told us how to enter into a negotiation. No one told us any of these things. So I try to read a lot around these topics, relationships with friends, with employees, with family members, wives, with spouses, with children, with, like negotiation. I try to read around human behavior. There's a great book that I recommend to you guys. It's called Influence by Robert Cialdini, a professor. It's one of the best books that I ever read from a non-Muslim. And may Allah guide him. I mean, I would really encourage you guys to read around this topic around human behavior. Okay. The last and final thing I'll mention here, and there's many things to mention. Well, this is going to be the penultimate thing because there's one other thing I have to mention after this, but it's not a tip. It's an area that I need to improve on in terms of this particular skill. The last point here, before I mention that, is always look out for people's best interests. Inherently, people are selfish. And I don't mean that necessarily that they're selfish in a malicious way, but as Allah says in the Quran, وَأُحْضِرَتِ الْأَنفُسُ الشُّحُّ, that people inside of themselves have this inclination to just look out for them and their best interests, right? Now, of course, the better person is the one who doesn't care for his interests. But at the end of the day, look, there's going to be some level where a person's going to look out for his interests, right? He's got bills to pay. He's got family to take care of. He wants to get married. He's got needs and desires that he wants fulfilled. So you'll be able to convince people if you can align what you want with what they want. And this is probably the most fundamental skill, or the most fundamental thing that I do with Allah's permission that makes my influence and negotiation so effective, is that I align myself with the people's interests. Even when it came to giving da'wah to people in the streets, I aligned myself with their interests by talking about things that were interesting to them. Like, let's talk about why you want to make money through drugs. Or let's talk about money, and then is drugs the way to go or not to go? Let's talk about relationships. People used to critique me. Man, why are you talking about these topics? These are taboo. This, that, and the other. But bro, I got the attention of the guys that you can't get through to. At least they're listening. And I know it sounds a bit strange. We don't like to hear about, relationships and boyfriend, girlfriend. But you know what? That's what they want to talk about. Now, if I can align myself with their interest, you want a girl, right? Why? Because you're roasting and you want to satisfy your desires. by having intimate relationships with them. Okay, let's be direct. Okay, cool. The way to do that is marriage. Like, I align myself with their interests and then I can enter the conversation. Likewise, in negotiations, there was a brother who is a very, very, very big da'i. He's, an ustad, sheikh, you can call him. Very big, okay? And we wanted to do a collaboration with him, between him and our app, Sunnah Match, which is our matchmaking app. And it's completely 100% halal, so on and so forth. Now, at the time when I was the CEO of the company, which I'm not now, I wanted to make a deal with him. Now, I know this brother, he has a rule. He doesn't get involved in businesses. He doesn't promote businesses. He might have a business of his own, but he won't promote anyone else's business, because it's like, if I promote yours, then someone else is going to what? Want me to promote theirs as well. And then it becomes just very hard. Everyone's asking me to promote, and then it's like, oh, you're cherry picking. You're promoting his business because he's your friend and you're not promoting my business. Why not? So he had this rule and he was really, really stubborn on it, right? So I called him for a meeting. And I was like, I'm not even stressed today. I'm walking away with the deal. Charlotte, I'm walking away with the deal. I'm gonna get this guy to sign the line, and the deal is gonna happen. You know why? Because all I needed to do was align the interests of our app with him, and I did so with the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. It took me 45 minutes of constantly repeating the same thing until the penny dropped, but I got it in the end. So this brother sat there at the beginning. He sat down. He's like, Imran, it's not gonna happen. That's how he started. It's not gonna happen. I don't do this for anyone. He's going off in his own monologue, and I'm like, okay. I already knew where I was going to grab him. I said, listen, Akhi, you're out here talking to people about not doing zina, right? In the da'wah space. How many questions come to you about haram relationships, zina, girl got pregnant with a kafir, with a kafir's kid, right? Like a lot, right? Heartbreak and stuff, right? Okay. And you're always telling them, don't do zina, don't free mix, boyfriend-girlfriend relationship is bad, right? Actually, we have the solution with Sunnah Match. Is it not a duty upon you then to not just tell people don't do the bad sin, but then to show them the way to actually find a way in halal? I was like, this right here is completely in line with your da'wah, and it may even be a duty for you when you find an app. Another thing that I pushed on was the fact that our app is 100% halal. There is no haram. Like we don't, there's no pictures. You go straight to the wali of the girl, so on and so forth. At the end, he was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, it would actually be a crime for me to not promote it. And it's so funny the way things happened within that 45 minutes. He went down, sat down, recorded the promotional content for us there and then. And from going, he went from, Imran, I'm not going to do this. There's no way, to sitting down, camera, lights, camera, action. Brothers and sisters, we have the solution for you if you're looking to get married. And it was a complete 180. And alhamdulillah, with the permission of Allah, I've always done that my entire life. And you know why? Because I'm looking out for their interests. And anytime I've walked away from a negotiation table thinking, where the deal hasn't happened, it's because the interest didn't align. It just didn't align. Like, maybe I think before going into the discussion, but the interests are going to align. But upon discovery, when you actually have a conversation, you flesh things out, you're like, you know what? It actually won't be that beneficial for me or you. Okay, let's not make it happen. And I do this with business all the time. Like, how is this beneficial for you? How can I make this beneficial for you? And this is honestly a fundamental skill. Now, I said to you I was going to share with you something that I need to work on, right? And that's my usage of language. Now, if you look back at my videos over a decade ago, my English was very good. I was a lot more articulate. My vocabulary was a lot more diverse. I spoke a lot less slang. I was more articulate in my speech. But having spent 7-8 years giving da'wah to guys in the streets and just trying to relate with them, speaking more slang than I should have, to be honest, but I heavily was impacted and it really destroyed my language. So an advice my father used to give me for years, and I only recently just started to see the wisdom in it. He said, Imran, read novels. Read novels. And I used to always say, Dad, I don't understand. Like, I read non-fiction books, right? This is my library. Like religious non-fiction books. I've got my English non-fiction books because I want to learn things of substance. He used to say, Imran, read these novels because these classic novels, like classic literature, because it will help develop your language. Now, this is like going to the gym for your tongue. Now, having moved to Dubai and being away from those guys that I was giving da'wah to, I realized my language is not appropriate for the environment that I'm in. Like, I can't be sitting here and talking like, what's going on, my brother? Yeah, like I might do that in my private circles with brothers that I'm very close to, that I have a long relationship with. But now I'm sitting with people that can be off-putting, and it comes across juvenile. So I started to read. I'm currently reading Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. And again, I would never put this ahead of my Islamic studies. I would nor would I put this ahead of my non-Islamic studies, where there's things where I actually need to learn things that have utility. But because for me, communication is such a fundamental skill, I've given myself the task of reading, even if just a few pages, right? And to be honest, Charles Dickens is an awesome storyteller. So it's actually very interesting. And you will improve your language. And for me, language is just so necessary. You need to be able to command your tongue in a way that is powerful. And, the word is a very, very, very deadly thing. One word could be a reason for someone's death. One word could be a reason for someone's downfall, their reputation to be destroyed. And one word could be a reason why a person's life is saved. And a word could be a reason why, war doesn't break out, or, a relationship is saved, or a business deal is done. It's about knowing how to package your words. So the the reason why I chose to read Great Expectations first out of all of his novels is because I was told he mentions Hounslow in here. And Hounslow is a place in West London where I was born and raised. So I was like, you know what? He mentioned the hood. It's funny. You can take the guy out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the guy, as they say, huh? But yeah, so I'm now starting to work on this. So there you have it, guys. Those are my 5 ways to win friends and influence people, and the 6th one that I'm working on. And there's a lot more that I have to share on this topic, but these are just my thoughts, and hopefully you guys found benefit. Now, if you benefited from this, there's another video that I think would be very, very beneficial for you. It's a video where I go through how to overcome the conditioning in our mind that poverty is piety. And this is something that even successful Muslim business owners who are actually making money are still plagued with. And that's why you'll notice that you keep hearing about non-practicing people amongst the Muslims, or disbelievers, who are reaching these high levels of success when it comes to the dunya. Whereas at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, his companions were the most righteous people, would have been at the top of the Forbes list in terms of the richest men in the world. But why is it that our practicing brothers can't get there? We still are plagued with this mindset. So I went through the Quran and Sunnah and the Sahaba and examples from the pious predecessors to break that mindset that we've unfortunately developed. So hopefully you guys will benefit, inshallah ta'ala.